Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of At the Table Podcast. We had a bit of a break from our last episode, so appreciate everyone who's been following along, listening. We've had a lot of great business owners come on, and I'm excited to share with you all this week. I have two co-owners of Property Craft, and they are based out of, actually all over Colorado. I would say Southern Colorado is the HQ in Pueblo, Colorado, but they service the entire state. So I'll let them share a little bit more, but I want to give a warm welcome to Scott Hinkle and Joshua Sparks.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Isaiah.
Yeah, I'm really happy you were able to, I know you guys have a really busy schedule, so thank you all for coming on. And, you know, a lot of our businesses that we've interviewed they're not necessarily like a location service based. For example, one is a PR firm out of Silicon Valley. The other one is a AI software. And so a bit different, you know, scaling those type of businesses compared to what you all were able to do with Property Craft. So for everyone who's listening, they're not going to be familiar with you guys because, I mean, most of our listeners won't be in Colorado, but I'm sure we'll pick up a lot of locals listening after we publish this episode. Sure. Do you mind sharing a bit about Property Craft and your guys' journey from the beginning?
Yeah, you bet. So Property Craft is a damage restoration company. So we do, when people have water damage in their homes, broken pipes, storm damage, those sorts of things, fire, Thanksgiving, the things you don't expect to happen. We do a lot of mold. We do asbestos abatement. We do meth lab cleanup, meth house cleanup in Colorado. And then there's a lot of other unexpected situations that people come across. Sometimes if there's trauma, we do bio cleanups for when people pass inside a home. We've done all kinds of unique chemical spill cleanups, stuff that you hope you have a guy that can handle something like that. And that's right. We're kind of one of those folks that can step in and handle a little bit tougher situation. Yeah.
It's the things that you never think about having or expect to have happen to property. And it's a lot of trauma-based, whatever it is. We've done some unique things that you couldn't imagine, dogs attacking a skunk and bringing it through an entire house, if you can imagine that smell and what that customer was going through that day, right. Vehicles that accidentally crash into homes. So it's a lot of trauma, not to just the property, but to the client, to the owner of that property as well. So you hate to say it, but we deal in disaster. We try to be the calm through the storm.
Wow, yeah, and that's so fascinating because you're not just doing that service for the property, but also you have a bit of the mental load too with the client that you're kind of having to deal with and communicate through. I'm sure there's a lot going through that.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. Everybody in our crew, I think they take that to heart too, because we're usually one of the first ones on site, say after a fire. I'm sure the fire department's been there. They put the fire out. How do you secure the house? The windows may have damage. How do you keep people out? How do you keep your belongings still protected? So we're usually very quickly on site, and people are still trying to process what happened and who to even talk to. And, I guess I need to call my insurance. I guess I need to talk to, a company. How do I even rebuild? What do I do with my mattress? There's so many things that you never consider. I don't even know what I have in my house. A lot of people, where do I start? And I think we try to at least be that starting line, but it's an emotional roller coaster for any kind of unexpected disaster, honestly. And that's what we deal with.
How did you guys, you two are the founders. So walk us back a little bit. How did you all decide this was the business we were going to get into? There has to be. I'm sure it sounds like there's a funny story. All right, I would like to hear it.
We met in college.
We met in college. We were fraternity brothers. We were friends. Our wives were friends. I had gotten into this industry first and just seen the opportunity. It seemed pretty recession proof. I think we both loved working on homes, working on structure, buildings, commercial. It was just something that we were passionate about, and being able to find something where we could do good in a bad situation. I had proposed the opportunity to Scott, and then I'll let Scott take it from there. So.
Yeah, I mean, I came from a commercial and construction background, um, so very process driven, very project management, estimating um, kind of background. So I think it worked out. Josh has a unique ability to be able to see vision and say, I don't know how to get there, but I know here's where we could be. And if I could just get some people around me who might be able to help me fill in the gaps, right? How do we get from? I know how to start, and I know where we should be. I just need to fill in the gaps in between. I think for a lot of people, that is a huge undertaking. That freaks them out, and that's why a lot of people never start a business,
Yeah.
because it's how do you even get there. Josh is always ready to dive in 2 feet first and then figure out the rest as we go. So, but I think that's why we worked was, I'm probably not like that, especially 10, 12 years ago when we were first talking about this. I was more, okay, well, let's talk about how we're going to get through the first week, the first 30 days. What a 6 months looks
First
like.
year.
Let's
Yeah.
run some pro formas and really try to understand if this idea can even really make money, employ people, support the community like you wanted to.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how this came about, was just the partnership. And then we wrote it took us months to write a business plan. It's very detailed. It's funny enough, we still reference it even, 10 years, 11 years later.
Right.
There was a plan to grow. There was a plan to serve local communities. That was the vision. That was the plan that we still follow to this day. So
Yeah, it's a living, breathing document that gets referenced often. We go back, we tear it apart, we change it, we move with what's happening around us in the economy, in our local communities. So, but Scott's not wrong. I'm definitely the pie in the sky. I'm more heart and feeling, and Scott is very much thought provoked. And how do we get what's in your head and feelings to actionable proof on paper?
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's you can't have everyone on the same type. Like everyone can't be the same type, otherwise you don't get to. You got to be able to have those balances. And so I
Yeah.
think you two obviously balance each other out. You've got one who's more of like a visionary. Scott can put it on paper and figure out like, all right, here's how we could drive that vision forward.
right.
And so that's awesome. And I think your guys' chemistry, you can see it, and it's obviously helped the growth here. So thanks for sharing that. And your story talks about starting in the garage. So what was that process starting in that garage, and where would you say it went from garage to finally, hey, here's our brick and mortar location finally, or whatever the next step was?
Yeah. It did. It was, we each had a truck and a trailer, and some tools that, we're probably fairly handy, around the house. And Josh, coming from the restoration industry where he had done this already. So we just, it was keeping expenses down to see if we could even, you know, you believe it's gonna work out, but at some point you kind of have to test it and see if there's even gonna be consistency. At least that's where my brain was. I think Josh was like, "Oh, work will come. We'll get that. That's the least of our concerns. It's how do we pay for materials and keep invoices going and whatnot." That's yeah. So starting in the garage, we were fortunate. I think we got some decent sized projects, and people were willing to take a chance on us, probably because we were probably very, very hungry and very eager to please and to we had no choice but to deliver a 5-star result. I mean,
Hmm.
I think the people who signed with us recognized that and said, well, I mean, they have to get there. And we did. And but it's one of those things, you work all day long and then you work until midnight on the estimates and the invoicing and the paperwork. Josh was out trying to go to networking events and find the next job, find the next contact to lead us to the right job. Um, that were the early days, where materials were stored in my garage, in my backyard, for the demolition stuff until we could fill up a whole dumpster's worth and take it down to the dump. So you just kind of scratch and grind.
Yeah.
You know, part of that too is it's being froggy. Being able to start the business, ensure that we're going to be able to feed our families. I think some of the things that happen in those early days is we did get opportunity, and you never like to say this out loud, but you get some opportunity that you're out of your wheelhouse, you're out of your realm. There's a job that comes in and you have zero business taking it, but you believe in yourself, you believe in your company, and you believe in the team that you've built around you, that you can figure out how to get it done. But we got those opportunities, and we acted like ducks on water. We acted like we were the authority and knew what we were doing until we were able to know exactly what we were doing on some of these jobs. I think some people are hindered by that inability of it's too much and I don't know how to do this. So they'll step away from that job, where we kind of dove into it head first, said we know we'll be able to figure this out on the back end and work it through as we went through. So taking those jobs that might be a little scary to somebody else, we still get those today, where we know that it's probably a little bigger than who we are, but we get through them unscathed, and we still deliver that 5-star service.
That's awesome. And when you guys started out, it was just you two, right? Did it take a while to get someone underneath your belt to like start scaling that employee?
It wasn't just us two. It was us two working other jobs. So we still had other jobs that we were working as we were going through this, as we were building this company.
Oh wow! So
Scott
you were
worked
doing
Daytime
Scott would
jobs.
work a 52-hour other job, and then he'd come over at 7 at night, and we would work from 7 to 2 or 3 in the morning, and it was that way for a short period of time. So
Right.
wow,
I
impressive.
think
Yeah, that's
I think we got our first kind of full-time employee within about 45 to 60 days. Is that accurate, Scott? Yeah. And then I think we got our second one fairly shortly after that. So
It's a tough thing doing service industry where we actually, I mean, we need other hands. You can only get through. We got a big house early in the early days. This family had left for vacation, all right, not vacation. They actually went up to Denver to go see their daughter in the hospital, and they came back after about a week. And a water line upstairs had broke, and there had been something like 300,000 gallons of water through their home. Um, it was a disaster, right? And we were very fortunate to be the team that helped put them back together. But for Josh and I just to do that ourselves, that's not feasible. But we had already started developing some relationships with some temp labor, and we gave them, here's what we need. We need people who can pass background checks. We need people who can show up on time. And so we were able to lean on Express Employment Services in Pueblo, and they certainly helped they helped us find some good folks that were able to help us get through some of those first jobs. And ironically, I think the second person they ever sent still works for us today.
yeah.
So
oh cool,
yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
nice. And going to just going into like your guys' early days, I think there's a lot of things about habits that that you implement early on that really help with success. Is there any habits to this day that you guys still utilize that you're really just like, hey, this is what we know in the early days. We committed to this. We made this a habit, like anything like that that you can think of?
Absolutely.
What habits do you have?
We've always said from the beginning, we want to be a voice for the property. We can sit here and be on podcasts and have an amazing conversation with Isaiah Hernandez. We can talk to adjusters. We can talk to property owners. But that property doesn't have a voice for saying, "Hey, this is what's going on with me. This is what's wrong, and this is what needs to be done to correct it and give this property the least likely opportunity of having it happen again." So I think we implement that up and down the ranks from our executive suite all the way down to the boots on the ground. If we can be a voice for the property, we're gonna make the right decisions, and just being able to give that property a voice of its own, and I think that's how we look at that, and I think that's been a huge portion of our commitment and our growth.
I like that. Anything for you,
Scott has better answers. So
There's no better answers. I think just habits create consistency. If you're talking about day in, day out habits, there's a lot to be said for just sticking with the basics and just trying to track projects. Scheduled meetings, blocking time for personal, a lot of that type of stuff are things I follow, just to make sure. It's hard to be everywhere all at once, and a business owner role is extremely demanding. If I wanted to, and if Josh wanted to, I could probably work 24 hours. I could work the next 24 hours, and not blink. So it's blocking and understanding what you can actually handle, where you impact on a day in, day out basis, and trying to just be most as effective as you can, when you can. So, but other than that, I'd say, client communication, strong habit type of thing.
Yes.
So all over the board on habits.
Yeah, makes sense.
Early day habits. Today's habit.
Going into that, you mentioned the client communication and the 5-star results. Again, as you guys grew and you have a lot of technicians underneath you, you have a lot of staff, and there's a lot of communication channels happening on the day-to-day operations, not just internally but externally, right? So with that, I don't know if it was you two or you guys, there was a key member you guys brought on that was able to help do this. But as far as training staff and making sure that that level of commitment and the quality of the job always got through to each client, how was that process?
It's a tricky thing, and I think everybody we've ever brought in realizes that no two jobs are alike.
Mm-hmm.
We try to fit as much as we can into, I'll say, a box. Like, all water jobs are very similar. All fire jobs are similar, but there's always some unique reason that they're completely different as well. And so it's, as Josh mentioned, I mean, it's being a duck on the water, because there's a lot of stuff we know, but there's a lot of things we still have to figure out on a job in, job out basis. So training has to kind of flow in a very similar fashion. We have to have folks who can really say, here's what I understand, and here's where I can bring you more answers. But I'm going to have to take a breath, find out the answer here, and then go in digging for that. In the early days, we tried to put together PowerPoints. Josh and I would take turns talking about different pieces of the business as we tried to onboard. It's hard to explain what it's like to walk into a fire for the first time. Sometimes it's a lot easier just to take somebody to a fire and say, look at this fire. Here's what these people are experiencing. So it's always been a hands-on, one aspect, and then some classroom training as well. Through the years, we've found some good training partners who have really sat down and helped develop some online stuff that we can use across the branches that can help teach, how are you physically drying out a water damaged property. How many days should you expect? What happens if this goes south? So we've really started to utilize and to lean on some of the other industry standards that have been developed through the years.
Yeah, we've got a set of standard operating procedures. That's a living, breathing document as well. It's always being changed. It's always being reviewed. It's always being revised. I think with our team, we always want them to not get into that tunnel vision where we're doing the same thing day in and day out. Let's try something different on this one. Let's see what works. I'm not getting stagnant with what we did in the 1970s or 80s or 90s or even in the early 2000s, but always trying different techniques, different types of equipment, different understandings. So that does help, but also letting the entire team know as well is we're not going to know everything, and it's okay to say, hey, I don't know the answer to your question, Mr. Customer, Mr. Property Owner, Mrs. Property Owner. But we will find that answer out. We have a lot of people around us within the industry, different contractors, subcontractors, industrial hygienists, people that have done a lot of different things in a lot of different ways that we can bounce ideas off of. We can get the correct answers, and just making sure that the team's aware to say, hey, I don't know, but I will find out. Give me 24 hours, give me 48 hours, and giving them that flexibility to reach out.
Nice. When you guys expanded out of Pueblo and you guys were going to different locations, can you talk about those growing pains? I'm sure going into new markets. I know you have done your research, and I'm sure there was some market analysis and try to figure out, like, can this work in Greeley? Can this work in? I'm throwing out names here, like Lone Tree, Boulder. Can this service work here? Can we get business? Because I'm sure those areas are more populated than Pueblo, like that Denver suburb. So there's going to be a lot more competition, I would say. And yeah, but I just want to know, like, what was those growing pains like? Anything you did wrong at first, or, if you don't mind sharing that.
It was, I think our first actual, we've always naturally gone into Colorado Springs from Pueblo.
Okay.
And I think the Springs companies are vice versa. They come to Pueblo. So we've always tried to actively grow into Colorado Springs, and probably mild success. It's so close that we work back and forth. When we actively decided, we sat down, we made a plan with the team and figured out what it's going to cost, what kind of investment we would have to make. We did do some research, and we settled on Loveland, Colorado.
Okay.
So we set a start date. We packed a trailer, and Josh, I have a picture of Josh waving out of his truck saying goodbye. He moved up to Loveland.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And our plan was that it was going to be the Pueblo's taking care of us through the years. Southern Colorado really Trinidad, Walsenburg, La Junta. Alamosa, we've taken care of clients all over Southern Colorado. And a lot of that was relationship. And so the idea was, if it works here, and if we can find another city that is, loves their local businesses, loves to support their community, has active chambers, has, that type of stuff, it should be the same thing. And it's like any city. Every city's looking for a good company who can do something and take care of folks. So Josh got on the highway, drove north, and landed in Loveland. And you'd go from there. You were there.
Again, me being pie in the sky, the first couple, I don't feel that we tripped and stumbled too much. I think if we did something, it might have been growing too fast. We opened, I think, 4 locations in a year and a half. Scott had mentioned Colorado Springs. I think if we tripped and stumbled on something, that was our challenge. It was Springs, and it's because we always tried to work it out of Pueblo, and I don't think it. We came to a point where we needed to stop trying to support it from Pueblo and just make it its own thing. Springs has always been a little bit of a challenge for us. And until we decided that we're going to have that location, we're going to have a person there, it was just always a challenge. So it was so close to Pueblo that we thought we could run it that way, but that would probably have been the one thing that I would, if we could go back in time, maybe doing that a little bit different right out of the gate. And surprisingly enough, I think Springs was the last location that we opened of the four. Literally went as far north as we could and then started working our way back.
Worked your way back. That's funny.
Almost too far. You can't fail, right? It's too far. I mean, Springs, you can always come back home and be like, I didn't work this week. You know, locating to Loveland was, well, you're on your own. You're 3 hours away from me. So,
yeah, 100%. And you guys have sales reps at every location, or is it like a regional sales for?
Location? You know, we've had a lot of success with running some sales reps. We have some talent in each of the locations that kind of do both. They do some sales and they understand the projects, so they run the projects as well.
Okay, so they'll manage. They won't. They're not physically doing the work, but they're project managing.
Some days.
Some days. Okay.
Hey, some days I'm physically. We're both physically doing the work. I did a Sunday night water loss a couple weeks ago. So.
Okay, so you guys are still getting your hands dirty. Like you guys will jump in on projects as needed. Okay.
Right.
It's great.
I think that's one of the things with our team too, is they recognize that we're not going to put them in any situation that myself or Scott hasn't done or still wouldn't do. So I think there's a lot of buy-in with the team because of that. So there is a lot of boots on the ground from our upper management. So
that's awesome. I think that really puts reassurance in the team to know that you guys are in the trenches with them. You know, obviously they understand the hierarchy of how this goes just because you guys have sacrificed, put the time and effort in, and now you guys are where you are because of what you've done. But also, hey, we're still here to support. Like we're not walking away. Like we're not walking away. It's not your problem. Like only your problem. Like we'll figure this out.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yep.
I want to know. I think when we get into entrepreneurs and small business owners who may be starting this journey or are still figuring this out, is there a lot of? Would you say there's what would you say is the biggest misconception? Like with a service-based company, as far as like scaling it, like, you know, because I think a lot of people, like you guys said, there's a lot of fears and there's a lot of like, you know, sometimes you get in your own head. What would you say those misconceptions are for scaling?
Yeah,
It's easy.
What's that? Yeah, it's not
easy.
Yeah,
not easy. I've worked harder than I've ever worked in my life, and it tightens up. You know, there's a lot of stress that goes behind it, but it's kind of going to that froggy portion as well, and the belief in yourself, the belief in your team. You just got to wade through the tough times. You got to wade through the lean times. You got to consistently change and maneuver. And what worked 3 months ago might not be working today, and recognize that and try to be ahead of that curve. It's a constant conversation, not only with ourselves but with our teams, it's not as easy as I thought it was going to be when we first got froggy and jumped.
Yeah.
It's you know, we had enough work periodically through in Denver that it made sense expanding. I mean, it felt like the right time to do it. But then, you know, a couple jobs here and there that we figured we were getting, and we had. But it's also how do you fill the rest of the days, and quickly realize, you know, how fast you can burn through money in Google, how fast you can burn money in all kinds of different, you know, mousetraps that some have results, some have mild results. You know, it's we've definitely we try to learn. I mean, it's a little trickier because I think when people are looking for a new furnace, they're out hunting and shopping and looking for a new furnace. For us, it's you don't know you need us until you need us. And then at that point, there's only a few avenues to go through. And so, where do you rank on Google? But the person may call their insurance agent anyway. And we may not even get an opportunity at a project because they got assigned a contractor right out of the gate. So, being service based with this, it's more right at the moment, trying to be top of mind in
Yeah.
every given moment.
And you guys are doing a lot of, are you, I don't know, most of your business, I'm sure it's coming from past clients or referral.
Sure.
Is that most of, would you say that's where you're getting most of your business now?
We get a lot of business we do get a lot of business recommendations from past clients. Occasionally, past clients have to use our services more than once. We're the single business where I hope you don't. People are looking for repeat customers. How do you increase bill? There's so many things. You want a return client to come back to your store. I'd rather not, but I would rather that client refer me to everybody that ever has a situation. General contractors, we have a lot of partnerships with general contractors that use us for various. I mean, they'll open up properties that have mold that are way above what they feel comfortable getting involved with.
Yeah.
Insurance agents, they'll refer us direct. I think we have a pretty high retention rate for those insurance agents. When they give us a client, we tend to make them look like superstars for referring us, and that helps. That's a big pain point for agents is how am I going to make sure I keep this client now that they filed a claim? Their rates are going to go up. I mean, all the worst things that they worry about. At least they gave a great recommendation, and we helped them through at a reasonable price. And they keep going back to that agent. So we've built a lot of relationships in that way too.
Nice.
Scott did a good job. We track everything, and I think there's about 29 key referral ways of bringing in business that Scott does track. So
That's awesome. That's good. That's important. And I think every business, like, Table Media Group as well, there's jobs that we land. Obviously, we're in different services, right? But still, it applies because you guys have gotten some really large jobs. Like, you guys do jobs with the city of Pueblo, right? Like, do they contract you guys?
Yeah, we've done things with the housing authorities and
Yeah.
different municipalities. Yep.
Municipalities.
I think we're currently working with Trinidad Housing Authority. We're doing some things with the municipality in Longmont. So yeah, we do a lot of federal government. We do a lot of military installation. So yeah, it's up and down the game a bit.
Yeah.
We've done some major fires and major industrial explosions. So
yeah, and I think, and some of those probably aren't the easiest to get in good with right away. Like, those probably take some, right? I would say that's probably competitive, and not competitive in like a good way where it's like, man, everyone's chasing to get their business because they're putting fires out all the time. I think just more so you want to be able to get credible clients,
right?
And you want to be able to build that book of business for yourself. So, like, for example, some jobs that we've gotten that if it's taken us over a year to get, and we're talking about video production jobs for bigger brands, like brands that I've been connected with, that Dean has been connected with, that we've known like the decision maker for like over a year. And it's just constantly taken, not just circling back, but running into each other at the same events, crossover, and just always keeping top of mind. Is there a job that speaks to that where you're kind of like, hey, we've always dreamt of doing it, like working with this person or this company? It finally took, 6 months, 8 months, a year or whatever, anything like that?
I mean, there's people that I think in our industry, there's something called industrial hygienists. And industrial hygienists are folks that will typically they test. So they'll test properties for asbestos, for mold, for meth contamination, fentanyl. There's a lot of things that test a property's health, more or
Phase
less.
one, phase two's land.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, lead.
Closing for so many things, closing properties, remodeling properties, damaged properties. But the industrial hygienists are typically pretty not standoffish, but they want to make sure that they're dealing with good folks because they're promoting their services and they're essentially setting the bar as to how this property can be mitigated, cleaned up, etc. And so if they're setting the bar, they need to know that other company, we're always excited when we are working with certain ones because they set a high bar, and it's up to us to make that, meet that bar and hopefully exceed it, and then get the property back. So I think, to earn the trust of these industrial hygienists is always a feather in our cap. And it's usually, sometimes it's on the first one. Maybe we do that great a job. And it's happened, but I think to become legitimate, to have some real understanding and say, okay, property, if you're high on property craft, then that's a good one you're going to see the results you want, Mr. Homeowner. And be able to, we can back up our work a little bit. And yeah, so those are always tough ones to really just build a good relationship. But once you have it, it is now that's somebody I can turn to and problem solve with. If I have another project that I don't know where to go, I'll make a call and say, hey, have you ever seen an asbestos spill that looked like, in these conditions? What would your eyes see on this project, and what am I maybe missing? So, but to have that kind of trust out there, I think those are always tough ones to get.
Makes sense. Anything else to add, Josh?
No, I tend to agree with that, and the way we make headway with the industrial hygienists is just how we approach the job and that cleanliness. So there's levels of how clean something can be. Um, there's there's a lot of things that can be left in ambient air that just as a company we don't believe in. So if I think we're on the higher end of what that zero would be in that air testing or that swab testing. And I think that's where, Scott's right. We definitely differentiate ourselves from our competitors with that process.
Very nice. I think I like where you guys had ended right there about differentiating yourselves from the competitors. I mean, when you guys looked at that that landscape of who's out there, who else is, offering the services, what was a strategy that you got, and you don't need to share it, like everything, but in general, like how long do you think it took you guys to figure out that angle of like, this is where we separate ourselves. This is our value proposition. Cause that's probably the most important thing for anyone to understand when they're working with or hiring any business is what's the value proposition of choosing Scott and Josh over, Mr. and Mrs. whoever. So anything you can share on that?
It took longer for me. I think this is something that being in business with Scott taught me. Uh, Starting off, I think I wanted to take care of everybody. And it took me a while to understand the value of who we are as a company and what we bring to the table versus what the price is on the contract. And for me, this probably happened about 5 or 6 years ago. Being able to sell value proposition versus price has been huge. And hopefully I'm answering your question with that. But somebody's going to do what a customer wants, but being able to take a higher perch or a higher standard of what we believe in and what our niche is, being good, better, and best, we want to be the best, and we want to do things right. So, but that was probably the hardest thing in business for me to get my head wrapped around because I always assumed value proposition with a dollar. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of shareholders in any kind of situation. Obviously, the property owner who has the damage, and then typically the insurance company, right? But beyond that, the mortgage company has an interest typically because if the original home was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and the homeowner decides to remodel it to a 4-bedroom, 1-bathroom, the mortgage company might go, hold on, that's not the same value.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pulling. The insurance is trying to make sure the prices are reasonable. The insured client wants to just be put back in their home, typically just the way it was. I, you know, that's, I don't think everybody's asking for too much, but there's a lot of lines that can be blurred or crossed in our industry. That's why, there's always the concern of insurance fraud and those sorts of things. So where we've always just tried to put ourselves is back to what Josh was saying. It's just the voice of the property. If we stay true to here's the actual problem with the property and here's, in our professional opinion and experience, the correct fix, then how I'm not overcharging for that. I'm not undercharging. It's a matter of, here's the actual source. Here's the fix. Let's go address that and get it corrected. So it helps us at least walk a line and follow a vision of, here's how we can treat every client and insurance company and everybody the same. And, at the end of the night, sleep knowing that I'm not overcharging for work I didn't do extra stuff that wasn't supposed to be done. And we didn't skim. We didn't shortcut. We didn't do it.
Yeah.
This was the correction. And in a lot of cases, it's those industrial hygienists who come in and test and confirm, yep, it's free of asbestos or it's free of mold. And everything was done to the right standards. So it tends to come back to the same place. And that's that voice of the property is our internal selling proposition, right?
Yeah.
I like that. Thank you, guys. Now, burnout, scaling, all that. Employees, you're taking care of a lot of people underneath you. Of course, you have your subcontractors that you're working with too, right? But primarily the employees and your technicians and everyone. Because the technicians are full-time under you. Are they? Whoever's listed on that website is like an employee type. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So as you're managing those people and, you guys are doing your jobs and all that, how has the burnout been and all that, if there has been any, and how you guys tackle that?
Yeah, it's real in our industry. Again, we go through every emotion with every client. So if our lead technician is day in, day out on a fire, the client is there most days. They want to know what's happening. They're helping identify content that there's loss of pets. That's any of that kind of stuff. It's not even just pets. Sometimes it's loss of family members. So, burnout just emotionally is we tried to watch it. I know we've lost folks through the years too, just because it can be a lot and it stacks up. They've moved on to different industries and it's a tricky world to be in. I think at the end of the day, it takes good-hearted folk who want to really say, I see the problem and I can help you get there. I can help get to the end here. The folks who do work for us, I think they really do take that to heart. But with that, the burnout is real. So we try to be careful on the biohazard, the trauma, cleanups. It's a voluntary thing in most cases. It is. And again, that's why Josh and I step in on occasion and go do we've been working hard for a lot of months in a row. And if I can go take a Sunday night water loss and leave my supervisors at home to be with their family for Sunday night, there is some of that trying to step up and help fill those gaps a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. Scott's not wrong. We wear a lot of hats. We can be insurance experts. We can be contractors. We can be psychologists and psychiatrists. We can be doctors. And it is really hard industry to not be an empath, right? Like it just, that energy attracts to you. And I talk to my staff, my crew a lot, when we're getting home at the end of the day and we're showering off the day, being intentful with that, right? Like you're putting that meditation in with it. During lunchtime, take your boots and your socks off, ground yourself back into the grass. This is me being the hippy dippy. But we do take on a lot of people's energy. We take on energies from homes. We take on energies from clients. It's a proven study that people with trauma to the house, it is very similar to losing, somebody within the family, and taking on that same kind of energy. So how do we still have fun with what we do? Be empathetic towards the client's situation or scenario at hand, but then being able to wash that off. So when we go home, we're not taking that back to our wives, and we're not taking that back to our families. We're not bringing that energy back into our house. So it's very difficult. And I think as we bring people into this industry today, we know that you either have a love for this type of work or you don't. We're going to know fairly quick if this is going to be suited for you. And I think as a company, we don't try to hire people that have the knowledge with this. We're looking for a type of personality. We can teach anybody what we do, but we can't teach people to be empathetic. And we can't teach people how to interact and react during this. So it's like everything else, it's always changing. A better understanding as we go further into this, and the certain things that we're looking for the team around us. But yeah, that was a good question, because it's challenging, and I think it stays with us longer than we'd like. We can sit here and say that it's easy, but it's a lot harder to do than you think.
Yeah, I can imagine for sure, especially when you explain, when you have already on this call, I've learned so much more than I went going in, where I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a lot heavier than I had thought. And it's not just simple property cleanup or anything like that. No, this is tough stuff. And you guys are still in it. What is it? What were we in, year 12, 11 or 11, 12?
I think going on 12 here, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
2014. So
And Josh, you got the nice wisdom beard going. And Scott, did your hair change at all?
It's a wisdom beard today in 2025. It wasn't like this that long ago. So I think I still had a lot of calico before we started growing in 22.
I have to ask is one thing I have to ask is, you guys, obviously when you guys started this, leadership style changes and develops, like as you add people in and you start leading and growing. Can you guys speak to that at all? Can you remember how you were as a leader in 2014 compared to where you are now? And that, what might have went to that change? Did it stay the same? Have you guys seen, like, I've matured a lot. I've learned to go, like, change my communication style or my tactics.
yeah, probably. Yeah, it's hard not to be reactionary in this industry, and that's not necessarily the best trait for a leader. Is to constantly be reactionary. We're changing our process today. We're changing the way we invoice these jobs. When people are trying to first off figure out what the heck's going on in this industry, in their role, and then also figure out what the boss wants this week versus last week. That's a tough thing. And there's times when this industry just calls for it. It's, we are going to do a different process because this cleaning is just it's a different type of fire. So we need to clean this different. And so it's, probably through the years, we probably tried to just become less reactionary and more measured. Take a breath. We would get just as much energy go. I mean, it's somebody's got a water loss, we've got to be there immediately. And that's partially true. But it's also, okay, let's take a breath. Let's make sure our vans are loaded the right way. Let's make sure we're prepared. Let's make sure that everybody's being safe. And so just, I think we talk about it a lot, just take a breath. And that's that's something that, our COO, Matt, will probably remind everybody of. It's, let's just take a breath. Let's make sure we have our ducks in a row, and then we can actually go help the client. So that's probably a leadership thing that's changed through the years, in both of us. And then just the realization that, you have to delegate. It's impossible to own and do every possible thing. Um,
Yeah, delegation's key. Yeah, you guys can't do it all. And
and it's, I recommend a book all the time. It's called, Who Not How. And you have to consider who, if you've got a task to do and it's something maybe you're not great with. I mean, it kind of goes back to how we started. Josh knew in the end that he wanted the company to have this vision. He could not, how do I get there was not the right question. Who can I get to help me get there was the right question. And that's where his brain went. So I think it's, is where, how do we find more leads? How do we close more jobs? It's not how do I close more jobs? It's not how, it's who can I get around me to help close more jobs, and who can come to the table and say, here's my ideas. Because I'm not the best at, getting our closing percents to increase, those sorts of things. But these are all, that's business. So it's a tricky thing. I see it a ton in our industry. I think people are very reluctant to give up, power because of their institutional knowledge, and give up responsibility, because it's the age old, if I have to do it myself, I'll do everything myself. I'm the best at it. And that might be true, but it is definitely hard to grow, with that mindset. So,
yeah,
Absolutely. I agree with everything Scott said, 100%. I think, that my aha, or my biggest challenge is when we did bring Matt on, and I sidestepped being the COO, and decided to be an owner, and have bosses around me, understanding that I couldn't get it to that next level, understanding my weakness within that, and then going out and finding somebody that could do it better than I could. It's yeah, is a real thing.
yeah. I know you guys have been great just being on and sharing all this information with me and everyone who's listening, and so I really appreciate this. And I have to just get this last question in, is for a piece of advice to any entrepreneur, any small business owner, anyone who's taking those steps. But primarily, I think the biggest thing is the trust and credibility. I guess like earning that trust and credibility. Do you have a piece of advice for that you can maybe share?
yeah, you bet. I think we've always just taken the mentality, we just go until there's a no. Go until you can't. When we were purchasing our first brick and mortar building, it even had some strings and some problems to it, but we just kept solving the problem, because ultimately we thought, if this is where we're supposed to be going, then, eventually it'll work itself out, and if not, then the no will come, right? But don't give up until you get the no, and that was really, especially in the early days, that was our mentality. Just let make sure somebody tells you no, and, no, you can't get that loan. No, you're denied for the property. I mean, whatever it might be, because until there's probably still a solution, and you just have to go find the solution. So if that's the case, I personally spent hours talking to as many, bankers and, loan officers. I mean, whatever it was, to try to just get as much knowledge. Nobody tells you, there's no book. There's books on business, right? And then every year they release more books on business, probably saying the same thing, but it's nobody. There's no set of guidelines or rules to follow. It's how do you want to make your business be your business, and then you just try to find your identity and stick to what you know. And, yeah, it's just, you just kind of have to just trust yourself. Really, that's what it comes down to, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be idle. Always be on the move, always try to change, always try to be better. Even if you've got a process that works, and it's done great for you, it can always be perfected. And just being always on the move, always asking people that are smarter than you around you, what can we be doing better? Truly listen to your clients and your teammates. Just be open. There's always a better way to do everything we've ever done. We just have to have the want and the will to be able to get to that point. So
Awesome. Thank you guys for that. I think that was well said, and I think a great piece of advice to take home. Your guys' website is propertycraft.net.
Yep.
got it.
Yes. .com was taken.
.com was taken. Oh.
.com was taken. So we just who knew you need to have a website?
Yeah.
We just needed an email address that sounded legit when we started.
Is propertycraft.com a restoration company or
no? I
actually think it's a real estate company, isn't it?
Probably real estate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Don't go to .com. Go to propertycraft.net if you want to learn more. About this business. Thank you guys for jumping on. Really appreciate it. And for everyone listening, thank you all. Make sure to still follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We are on, I guess we're on YouTube too, Threads, Table Media Group Inc. and Property Craft. Do you guys have all your social media accounts up?
We do, yeah.
Okay. Is it just at Property Craft or?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. All right. For everyone listening, I'll make sure to put in the show notes. We'll get all the handles in there so you guys can follow them on social media. But Josh, Scott, thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having us.